This is like the fun part where you can watch everybody tune in.
I know.
Watch all the attendee number go up, and you feel like, I don't know, it just gives you this surge of going, man, people actually like us. They actually would want to join in this conversation. We're not going to be talking to ourselves today.
Love it.
Brian Matson, good to see you, my friend. Glad you're tuning in.
I see Jeff there as well. Hello, Jeff.
Yes.
I'm gonna call out all the people I know.
Al Dickinson, good to see you, my friend.
Hi, Jeff.
Good stuff. Paul, thanks for joining, both of you. Ralph Thompson, good to see you. Good stuff. We got a few more minutes. We'll let a few more tune in, and then we'll get this conversation kicked off. Tricia, glad to see you. Glad you're joining today. Eric, good afternoon to you too.
Hey, Bruce. Hope you're doing well.
Fantastic. So we got a great conversation, I think, today that I think is going to be really helpful. Obviously, I hope. You know, it's just everything's moving so fast, right? I mean, I've been telling people my days have felt like weeks, and these weeks have felt like months. It's been crazy. I don't know about all of you guys, but how are y'all? Let's just start. I mean, how's everybody doing today?
Fantastic.
Yeah, Becca,
Yeah.
you doing good? Where are you? So you're home, obviously. Where are you in your house?
I'm upstairs in the only quiet spot I could find, a random bedroom, because I've got a 2.5-year-old running wild downstairs. My husband's working downstairs, and mother-in-law is watching my son. Thank goodness for her. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Amrita, what about you?
I am in my home office. Luckily, my husband has his own studio that he works from, so I get the place to myself. You might hear my train track, my train next door to us. Hopefully not too loud during this call.
Matt, what about you? Where are you today?
I'm in the home office. It's just me and the dog today. So having a good time. It has been a long quarantine, but I do feel lucky.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Dan, what about you, my friend?
I'm at Alamo Square Park right now, keeping an social distance away from everybody else. No, I am actually in my apartment on my couch next to the wireless router where I get the best wireless connection.
I love it. I know. So that's good. That's a good warning. Thanks. So if we see you freeze up or whatever, we'll just keep moving along.
Exactly.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and just kick things off if that's all right. Hi again, everybody. I am Becca Smith, the Senior Director of Marketing and Events for Connect Travel. Welcome to our third marketing webinar for our series, Staying Connected. So really happy to see a lot of familiar names, a lot of new ones as well. Really just excited to have everyone here. So before we dive into the conversation with our panelists and their varying perspectives on essential versus non-essential, the new normal of marketing stacks. Just a couple housekeeping items. I'm sure you're all aware, but please submit questions through the Q&A portal. We've been really having a lot of great feedback on the chat function. Love seeing your shout outs, love seeing your comments, so keep those coming. We'll try to address as many of those along the way that we can. And really our goal for these webinars is just to keep everyone connected, have everyone share their different viewpoints, ask questions. We want to keep building that sense of community, sharing ideas, and really just supporting one another. So really happy to have everybody here. Another quick kind of shout out is a great way to stay engaged is to subscribe to the Travel Vertical. It's a free weekly B2B newsletter. You can subscribe at thetravelvertical.com. It features a lot of great thought leadership from a lot of the people I see here on this call, a lot of our panelists as well. So a really great resource for you. And then without further ado, our favorite moderator, Josh Collins, is back again. In case you don't know Josh, he is a TEDx alum, experienced architect, and he leads the vibrant Destination Accelerator team at Streetsense. So welcome back, Josh.
Yes, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. I, of course, am in my home office, basically in Franklin, Tennessee. One of our guests is saying, "Where's everybody at?" So let's make sure we give everybody where we're at. I'm just south of Nashville in Franklin, Tennessee. Matt, you're actually in Nashville, or on the other side of Nashville, right? I guess technically. So that's kind of cool.
Yep, just north.
But yeah, glad to be here and excited for this conversation. I think this is, we have been getting so many great emails. I know Becca and Sherry and Will at Connect, right? We've been having so many great conversations these last few weeks and receiving. Amrita, I'm sure you too at CrowdRiff, you've been getting great questions and conversations, and this one I think is going to be particularly helpful because we are, we're using this term new normal. We're throwing it around like crazy. I don't want to throw it around so much to where we all of a sudden become immune to it because it still has a lot of weight and gravity for where we are. But I think this conversation is important because as we look at this new normal, certainly some of the decisions we're making are defined by these terms, essential and non-essential, right? Those two terms, right, now have this new cultural stigma to us in thinking about businesses and thinking about workers and, all kinds of different stuff. And so I thought it would be good for us to start there and go, how do we think about this? What is essential versus what's non-essential? So that's where we're going, and we'll have a really good conversation around that. And certainly, again, like Becca mentioned, Q&A is open, so drop your questions there. But I want to go around and make sure you guys introduce yourselves and let everyone know a little bit about you. But before we do, okay, it's really important. This was something I've been thinking about this week, and we're all now in, I don't even know the number of days we've been in quarantine. I probably should have had that prepped. I don't know, but I have been especially convinced that putting ourselves in position to encourage one another has never been more important. And I really do mean this from the bottom of my heart. Everybody, I'm looking around the screen in gallery mode so I can see everybody's faces. And as I look into your faces right now, like every single one of you brings a smile to my face. And I'm so encouraged to be on this with you because you each bring such incredible stuff to our industry. I mean, all of you are really incredible friends, people that I do call friends and admire. And so this is an honor to be on this with you. So I just want to say, first of all, thank you for that and encourage you personally for donating your time and being here with us. And yeah, Matt, why don't we start with you? Kick us off. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're at, what you're doing, what you're excited about, hopefully staying healthy and safe. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So I am in Nashville. And like I said, so far, healthy, safe, very happy and blessed for that. But yeah, we've been very busy since all this started. I'm with Plan Left, and we focus on high performance marketing, custom software, and big custom websites and apps and things like that. Today, I'm kind of here to represent Turn Right, which is which I'm very excited about. It's a new destination marketing focused framework. So it's content management system along with some marketing automation tools. And you can find out more at turnright.io as we start to activate that over the next couple of months.
Awesome, man. Glad you're here. Dan.
Hey, everyone. As you can see from my background, I work for the San Francisco Travel Association. We're the DMO in San Francisco. And my role there, before all of this happened, Director of Global Digital Marketing. I oversaw all of our content, social, digital advertising, And so now my job is to continue doing that at San Francisco, managing the visitor messaging that we're doing through our social, through our content on our website, and be here so that way when we can recover from all of this, we can turn on the faucet and, like I said, really promote the destination when it's safe for everyone to come and visit, and get everyone excited and inspired about travel.
Yeah, I love that. And if you guys don't follow Dan, seriously, or you're not familiar with him, follow him on Twitter or whatever. I mean, I have long loved not just being friends with you, dude, but like literally, I love the creativity and love the work that you guys do. I'm a long fan of it. So this is great. Amrita, good to see you again. I always love seeing you. You bring such a smile to my face. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Yeah, I'm like envious of your library. I would love to have one of those in my house. I've got a little one, but yeah, it's good to see you. Good to be here. I think we all miss seeing each other face to face, so this is the next best thing.
Excellent. And you're with CrowdRiff, obviously. If I know this, some others might not, but CrowdRiff is I'm probably going to maybe, tip my hat a little bit, but I would certainly consider CrowdRiff an essential part of the marketing stack. That's my opinion there, hot take. but yeah, how are you and Dan and the team at CrowdRiff doing?
Yeah, well, some of you may not know, Josh was actually our very first customer at Visit Franklin back in the day. So we've been friends and partners for a long time. We're doing well. I mean, we, like everyone else, we were right in the middle of this crisis and seeing everything that's going on with our customers and the industry, but we're really trying to channel things in a productive way to see what can we do to help. And yeah, CrowdRiff is a tool that many folks on this webinar are probably familiar with. We're really a great tool for finding all of this user-generated content that people are sharing and housing all of your visuals. So really happy to see all the different and creative ways people are working with us right now.
Love it. Love it. And Becca, of course, good to see you again. Glad you're here with us.
Thank you.
Any disruptions from the kids yet?
No, so far so good.
No, that's awesome. I'm hoping mine don't come barging in the door that's right next to me
Yeah.
here too. So, I'm with you. Well, let's dive in. Obviously one of the first things we do when we experience short-term crisis is look to make assessments and short-term solutions, short-term strategy shifts, et cetera, right? And so, when we're thinking about essential versus non-essential in the marketing stack, and that's kind of just a glorified way of saying what tools and technologies are we using to connect with our audience, right? So how do we even start with defining that? How do we even think about, a process to go through? I mean, not just now, but even coming back, as we look forward toward recovery. Dan, you obviously manage a great team and have a lot of resources there that both assets on the ground and thinking about connecting with a lot of different people as a global destination. What have you done? What have you found? How have you led your organization to define that? And for you personally, how are you defining it?
Yeah, that's a great question. First and foremost, well before this crisis and during this crisis, the objective is to communicate out about our destination and continue to tell our story. That has definitely shifted in times of crisis and what we exactly talk about in our destination. But that is still our objective. So the way that I would define essential versus non-essential fall into three components. One is to keep the lights on, and that's really to focus on your own channels, website, email, social. These are three huge channels that even if you don't have paid media, they are still huge channels that you can update and continue to communicate about your destination. That can still drive inspiration, still drive that knowledge, still drive that contact point. The second thing is to look at technology that will allow us to scale and automate. The reality is a lot of our destinations have experienced workforce reductions, and that won't change once we get into recovery. We'll still have to work with probably with the same number of people, the same team, and we're going to be stretched further than we ever thought we could. So a lot of people are taking on multiple roles and multiple things. And so looking at technology, what technology allows the workforce to take on a lot more and automate a lot of things without disrupting the communication. And then third is the recovery phase. And when we're able to again spend money in market, it's to focus on those channels that really allow us to focus on specific KPIs. I think coming out of this in recovery, organizations are going to have to be really hyper focused and understand the campaigns that they run, what KPI are they really drilling down to. So focus on channels that really do that. Second thing is to have direct relationships with those channels. It's ever important. You're running, a campaign on an OTA like Expedia. Of course, you want to be able to talk with them and work with them directly, so that way you can ensure that you're, one, communicating out to them about KPIs, and two, making sure that it's in turnkey. And then there's channels like Facebook and Instagram that allow you to, are self-service, allow you to create those ads on the fly and allow you to reach a lot of people. So those are the three things that I think in this essence are essential versus non-essential for destinations.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good. I mean, I know both Matt and Amrita, y'all are no different when thinking about business decisions and trying to, lead teams and think about how do you many times make difficult decisions, and not just around the marketing stack and resources like that, but you have people who are leveraging those tools. So how have y'all made decisions? Amrita, let's start with you. How have y'all made decisions around understanding what's essential versus non-essential?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're all having to face a very new reality right now. And to Dan's point, I think one of the things that's been interesting is we haven't changed our tech stack too much. We've gotten, I think there are one or two tools that we no longer use, but we actually felt almost the opposite, which was with fewer people, these tools become more important. But what has changed is how we use the tools. So I know, for example, that let's say you have an email marketing tool and you might have had a dedicated person who was really running your email marketing program. In the absence of that, maybe you're not sending, 5 different versions of your email to 5 different segments. You may end up just sending one to everybody because that's kind of the best that you can do. So we're really thinking internally on our own team about how can we use these tools in a different way. And then certainly with our customers, I think we understand that a lot of our customers who were our power users may or may not be either available or still working, unfortunately, right now. And so we're trying to help them use the tools in new ways so they get more value out of it. And then B, talking to people who may not have been so hands-on with CrowdRiff before and helping them focus on the essentials so that they don't try to do something that someone might have done when they had much more time to focus on our tool.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Matt, what about you?
I mean, I can echo a lot of the same. For us, marketing automation and really kind of doubling down on it and making sure that we are using it to its fullest potential and providing content, messaging, and value that helps the people that we serve right now more than ever, realistically. The other thing we've done is kind of taken it back to basics and just making sure that in this environment, I think this is important for everyone, marketing really is an iterative sort of thing. Right now is the perfect opportunity to take a step back and reassess the voice, the personas, the targets, and all of that. But not only that, it's a great time to make sure that the processes, the standards, posting standards, content calendars, all of that, and coming out through all of this, it's going to be more important than ever to make sure that you've got the foundation and the fundamentals down, I think, which isn't so much part of the stack and the technology, but I guess, there are tools that help you do that, and more than anything, using those tools to their fullest potential now.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what we've been focusing on here.
Mhm.
One of the things I love between Dan and what you both said is in thinking, one, the place you were before is you're not necessarily bloated with a lot of tools that are extra, right? I mean, you really do have a pretty concise marketing stack that you get efficiencies out of. You have some measures of scale too. The challenges become probably the number of people that are involved in it, or maybe even different people now touching it and executing it. So that can introduce a challenge certainly there too. But I know that, in travel and tourism, we have seen just an explosion over the last 5 years of tools and tool sets and software as a service platforms and various things that give destination marketers the ability to connect with their audience, Dan, to your point, direct connection to the audience in new and innovative ways. And certainly we can think forward and going, the budgets and resources we're going to have available to perhaps, pursue some of those things is probably just going to be limited as we move forward and as we try to recover as quickly as possible, right? So I love the framework you gave, Dan, and thinking just about, what's going to keep the lights on. How do we get direct connection to our consumers, right? And what helps us, right? What helps us automate things? What makes it easier?
She's still there.
So I love that is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Oh, great. Okay, cool. Sorry. I was making sure I didn't have a problem. So, so I think if you're sitting down with a destination marketer, perhaps one of those that are on the call here today, and they're going, gosh, our budgets, our budget's getting slashed. We're not sure. We're not sure if we can renew, CrowdRiff, for example, Amrita, or we're not sure. We've got this tool we use for social media. How do you address that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can
putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no, I can speak to, of course, the question does come up. I'm grateful that it hasn't come up very often for us, which tells me that people are finding real, value in this. And I think for us, I know Dan had mentioned this earlier too, I think maybe at the top of the call, but one of the things to really think about is how can you use the technology perhaps in new ways? And so maybe a small example is if you are only using CrowdRiff to source content for your social channels, that is really a fairly limited way of getting value out of the tool. And so we've had lots of conversations where people are saying, oh, I no longer have the photography budget to update my website with all of this new imagery. Now I can actually pull that imagery out of CrowdRiff. So thinking of us as not being a tool for social media, but now being a tool for, creative content, whether it's email, website, social, even paid. And so sometimes we have to, reframe or remind people because, we might have had a conversation with them a year ago when they first bought us and they might not have remembered that we also can house like your media hub. So a lot of it is just, number one, I think all of our CSMs, to their credit, I think they're just really kind and empathetic people, and we understand that everything is different and that every dollar you spend has to really matter. So we want to be helpful, and I'm grateful that for the most part, people are still finding us really helpful.
No, that's really great. Dan, what tools are you using that you're relying on more now than ever?
So certainly CrowdRiff is definitely one. We're relying on really our email service provider and we do have some personalization on our site right now that we are utilizing through Bound. But to Amrita's point, there's being at a destination, speaking with a vendor, from my perspective, what I want to know is how that technology can still be used to continue to communicate and tell the story. So there's a lot of, change happening in our organizations. So it would be great, to understand who in the destination is now the new point of contact. Now, how do we ramp them up to be a huge power user so they understand like instantly how valuable that technology is, and of course to create more use cases now more than ever. To Amrita's point, that that you know, it's important that you can utilize technology in many different ways.
Yeah, so I know we typically have strategic plans, campaign plans. We plan out things with what we're going to do. Certainly, that is the same when we talk about product development, right, Matt? You are certainly on the cutting edge of a lot of this with software development, product development there on the technology side, and you plan out in advance, iterative cycles around sprints and other things to develop your own, solutions and how you work with destinations. But I would imagine that, as we look, obviously, when everything stops, everything stops. And so how do you then kind of reboot or recover in that planning cycle? How do you reprioritize things that are more important than others?
Man, that's a good question. As far as how to reprioritize, I guess it always comes back to that business priority and that use case. It's really putting your end, and it depends on the software, the application, but let's say it's marketing software. What's going to help the people using the marketing software put their audience first? What's going to really help them reach them the best? Somebody said empathy earlier, and it set off this chain of thought. A marketer's strongest skill has always been empathy. It's like the core skill of marketing, right? And so I guess if we're talking about marketing software, what enables that activation, that ability to get and look through the lens of the target audience, to best speak to them, to best reach them, to best connect? That's those tools of communication and connection, I think, that are going to be prioritized right now. And there was another thought that I had with it, just about also something we've been going through internally still. Everybody farms out certain parts of what they do. Every team, every stack has something that's outsourced. For me, servers, I don't go into server farms and maintain servers. We use AWS and DigitalOcean just like everybody else. But there are certain parts of your stack that you have to start to question if you're going to bring in-house or leave farmed out. And something I was thinking about walking into the meeting this morning, or the webinar this morning, was how important it is right now to be honest about what it is that you can take on and you're willing to take on, and what you kind of still have to keep farmed out. I think it's an important part of the conversation of selecting that tech stack and reprioritizing, as we are right now.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, certainly dropping the empathy word on me, is my love language. If anybody follows me, they know, they probably know that, but that's a really important thing to think about, an accurate assessment of if we're bringing things in-house, right? If we're having to now, Dan, like you brought about, if we've survived some workforce reduction, if we've gone through that, we may have to really make some harder decisions about whether or not we can realistically perform at some level using this technology. If it's email, right, Amrita, I love that. Maybe you're going to go from segmenting down to maybe a more streamlined type of messaging strategies there, because that's all the capacity you've got, right? Those kind of assessments are really, really important. I'm wondering too, though, Dan, how do you calculate ROI on this? How do you get at any kind of ROI with what these tools give you? Because you brought up KPIs, and we know historically we've seen in our industry some really beautiful case studies with lots of really fascinating stuff. That at times, those of us on the destination side, those of us as marketers or vendors, you look back and you go, okay, great. X number of clicks is a great vanity metric to share, but did it actually drive overnight visitation? Did it actually move all the way down to the KPIs we probably should be paying more attention to? And I think as we come out of this, certainly that's going to be even in greater focus for us as destinations leading our communities, through this recovery, right? So how do you come at ROI?
Yeah, it's interesting. You can look at, channel specific KPIs in terms of those metrics of click-throughs, of open rates, of how much engagement you have, how much growth. Obviously, those are still there. But I think it's an opportunity right now with that. Well, not only are you looking at your tech stack, but also looking at your first party data that you collect.
Yeah.
Sure, a lot of destinations, you know, we're collecting a lot of data that they didn't even either know about or had too little time to look into. You know, we were no different in San Francisco travel. And I think now more than ever, it's important to look at that first party data and really look at when demand is coming back. I'll give you an example. For us, in our first party data, we're looking at Google Analytics on our back end of our website.
Let me interrupt you just for a second to say, let's not assume everyone on the call knows what first party data is. So explain that to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first party data is data that you as an organization collect and get asked for permission for. And that could be anything from getting people's email addresses and getting information about them, or seeing anonymized data through the back end. So like Google Analytics, understanding the data that comes in there, whether it's how many people come to your website, what's the makeup of them in terms of demographics, where are they from, geo. So it's utilizing all of that data that we already have permission for, whether it's anonymized or not. And so it's important to look at that data and understand what trends are happening. And I think that is where the ROI comes in, is understanding the trends versus getting a specific KPI at this point, because you want to know when is the right time to go back in marketing, or go back into the market. When is the right time to start investing in technology or in paid media? So one of the trends that we're looking at is our Google Analytics, and specifically our organic traffic to our site, because that is an indicator of intent. So understanding where we were before the crisis and seeing the progression of where we are now, and to some extent, not to some extent, but to see where we're going on a day-to-day basis, and seeing, you know, it's not necessarily about that overall number, but it's about that trend and understanding that.
Yeah, that's man, I just love that. That's some really good stuff. You just dropped some great knowledge on us. So it sounds like you're saying two things as it gets to ROI. One is visibility into the data, right? So you can interpret it as quickly as possible and make quick decisions from it. But two, the other piece of the ROI for you is what generates the most conversions into collecting that first party data. Is that right? Was that?
Yeah, I also think it's also it's the generating that demand.
Yeah.
For the destination. So I think the demand at how it used to be was how many heads in beds do we have? Now it's like demand of like how many people are searching for San Francisco and coming to our site because of that? How many people are engaging with our content on social? How many people are opening our email? And with segmentation going down, and we're segmenting less, you know, understanding that trend there. Are we still getting the open rates that we were seeing beforehand? So again, it's coming back to those trends and understanding that demand.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So Josh, if I can jump in, there's a good question that came through from Kim. I'd love to, you know, have all the panelists address that, as well as you with your background as well. When funds are limited, how do you decide what services to farm out versus what you do in-house, especially with a small CVB? That could be PR services, SEO services, etc. So Josh, do you want to start just with your background?
Yeah, no, that is, Kim, that's a great question. Thanks for asking that. You know, one of the things that core beliefs that I, you know, came through, I mean, for those that don't know, I was formerly on the destination side at Visit Franklin, which is a community, smaller community south of Nashville, Tennessee. And, one of the things that I firmly came to believe in and learning how to make this decision is it's almost like visually in my head, I could see a matrix. It's like a decision matrix of sort, which was all ultimately guided by a collective and shared vision, based on culture. Was is there alignment on the culture? Is there certainly value in the offering? But then at the end of the day, it's like, are we going to exist in a relationship that we are truly partners, or am I merely a transaction and they're my vendor? Am I a client? Do I get treated like a client, right? I mean, that type of thing became almost the meta decision-making of understanding that. I think it's largely why, to me, CrowdRiff was an immediate value and one that I jumped on and advocate for still today. Similarly for the other solutions that I have really loved over the years, but it became thinking through all of those resources, both people resources, certainly the value based on, financially what I could afford and what I got out of it to what Dan was just talking about with the ROI. The visibility it afforded me into earning even greater conversations and relationships with those that are looking at my destination as being, is this going to be the place that I invest my next dollars for my family, right? I mean, that became ultimately the thing. Is it going to get me there even faster? I don't know how else would you add to that, Amrita or Dan or Matt?
Yeah, I can hop in. Yeah, I guess first of all, I would say it's not the same for every destination, but in terms of which things to outsource or not, I always start with looking at what skills do I have on my team. And so some skills, for example, on our team, we reduced what we were spending on paid media. And so, having someone who, or outsourcing, some of our services to a Facebook ad kind of expert was less important right now. And so we could manage with someone on our team who did have those skills. On the other hand, I don't have anyone on my team who I would say is really skilled in PR. And so it was important for us to continue to retain those services so that we could really work with an expert. Because we didn't have that on our team. And then coming back to what Josh is saying, of course, what is the impact of that investment in whatever that service is that really going to move the needle for where you are right now as the destination? And especially now where the things that you might have thought you were going to do this year might have changed. So you might no longer be targeting fly markets. You may only be doing drive markets. Does that change the way you reach people? And then the last thing I always look at is the opportunity cost. So if I use up the time on my team to take care of this responsibility, what am I now taking off their plate? And is that a good trade-off for me to make?
Yeah. To add to that, I would say it's about what's going to help you. This kind of threads it back to what we were talking about earlier, but what's going to best help you measure ROI and what's going to best enable you, looking at what skills you have, and making the decisions based off those are one thing, but you also have to look at what tools you have and don't have in your stack that are going to best help you show the value of what you're doing, because let's face it, that still has to be done as well. And so to bring it back to what Josh was saying, who are you bringing in? What partners are you bringing in that are going to help you measure where you're not sure how to? Who's going to be there to help walk you through it, to help set it up and to help strategize? And so as a single person team, I think that those relationships and kind of looking at the strategy of making sure that all the value is there, not only on paper, tangibly, but also the intangible value of the people that are going to be there and put in that extra effort to help make sure that you can show what you need to show.
Yeah, that's really good. Dan, would you maybe add on? And we got a great question here pointed to you from Rachel, who says, would love to know what San Francisco has been doing in terms of email outreach. What has your messaging been during this time to prospective visitors?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we look at our email as just one channel, and our overall visitor messaging strategy encompasses both the website, social, and email. So this is not just what we're doing through email, but we really see our visitor messaging in 3 parts. Phase 1 and phase 2 we're in right now, but phase 1 is more informational, pushing out the correct information about what's going on in our city and how the crisis, how our city's been impacted. The second phase is really the quarantine phase where everybody's staying inside. And when we're in that phase, which we are right now, is to give people that inspiration to get through this phase. So that way, when we're in recovery, it's to generate that demand to then travel. So right now, with what we're doing through email, is again giving our audiences the correct information about San Francisco, and letting people know the safety measures that we're putting into place, and what we're trying to do to combat this, as well as in our second phase, which is giving people inspiration. So that's what can people do at their home that brings San Francisco into their house? What's streaming? What wellness can they do? What food and drinks can they bring in? Can they and obviously the backgrounds that we've been producing that you see behind me. So these are all things that we're doing that ladder up to an overall visitor messaging plan.
Yeah, I love that. There's been so many good virtual experiences that we've noticed, deployed through social and online. I love you that you mentioned food and drinks, because I'll never forget a trip I had to Australia, to Coogee Beach outside of Sydney, and it was the first time I ever drank a flat white. And this was years before we started having it so common in the States. Now you can get it at Starbucks, right? Or at least those Starbucks that are reopened now, right? But I'll never forget the attachment I have to that memory and that experience. And so I love that, even thinking about, you may have, your destination may have a signature cocktail at one of your, spots on Main Street or whatever it is, right? But you've got those things. They're all over. They're all over the place, and they connect and create experiences for those travelers that have come. And so I love that that's a thing. We've seen a lot of destinations. Certainly, I've seen what you guys have done, Dan. Puerto Rico has done a great job of that as well, and others. But
yeah, I think one of my favorite virtual experiences, and I'm from LA, so I think what Discover LA has been doing right now with their Magic Hour and broadcasting that live every night from Venice Beach is one of those great virtual experiences that isn't just going in once, but it's obviously enjoying and seeing it every day. So I think that's another example.
So we got a great question. Unfortunately, I don't know who asked this, but thank you, whoever did. We're using this new day, new normal language. How have KPIs shifted, and what will you be measuring? What ROI going forward? So it looks like what new KPIs will we be paying attention to, and has that shifted? Certainly, you jump in there. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think. The new KPI right now, it depends on what phase we're in, but right now I think it's the growth percentage and rate that we're seeing in terms of our major KPIs, whether that's social engagement, organic search, email, not acquisition, but email referral traffic. These are all trends that we want to see going up, and knowing that we're doing our job the right way. Obviously, when we get into recovery phase, our KPIs will change, and we'll be doing more to market the destination. Obviously, we want our KPIs in line with our stakeholders when they're ready to host everybody.
Yeah, that's really good. Amrita, what would you add to that? How are you guys, from looking at, content being shared online, social engagement, that kind of stuff? What are you guys seeing, and how are you maybe advising, your destination clients as to what KPIs to be paying attention to? You're on mute, by the way.
unmute myself. I think right, there was a train going by. I think right now we are definitely seeing that people are spending a lot more time on their screens and on their phones. And so we're seeing definitely a big uptick in, I would say, the visibility around social media. And I think that we're probably all experiencing that on our social channels, where you're just seeing a lot more, not just follower growth, but just a lot more engagement, which is fantastic. There's a lot more, I would say, viral moments that are happening now as well. And then I think you know, another thing which Dan was making me think about is that sentiment is still really important. And so it's really important right now for destinations to stay top of mind with people, because we know that we're not going to be in quarantine forever, but even during quarantine, to be a destination that evokes a positive emotion from that visitor, even if they're experiencing your destination virtually right now, is really important. And so I love the campaign that San Francisco and LA and New York have been doing, you know, through my window, because it is such a creative, interesting way. It's, you know, they're calling on people to show the city through their windows. And so it's actually putting the locals front and center, and yet at the same time, showing imagery that would be really inspiring for visitors too. So it's very, you know, hard to crack that nut. And I think one of the reasons why they've gotten so much recognition is because I think they've really created content that a local and a visitor would really enjoy. So I think measuring sentiment and measuring recall is still also really important.
You know what you just made me think of, though, what would be maybe we drop this on the product roadmap for CrowdRiff, but if we had the ability at some kind of sentiment metric inside of CrowdRiff from, you know, from obviously conversations happening, from moderated galleries, et cetera, that might be an interesting tool set to add to the analytics of the platform there.
Yeah, you know, Josh, if you weren't such an old friend, I'd call you out for putting me on the spot. But you know what? I'm going to record this and send it over to our product team and let them know that 200 and something people are hearing you ask for this. That's fantastic.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's all in good fun. You know, Dan, I love that you mentioned analytics, Google Analytics. And Matt, I wanted to ask you this because I know you're a pro at Google Analytics. You've taught me a ton over the years. So, you know, Dan brings up demand and measuring demand as a KPI. And I think that's really important. We've seen, obviously, for destinations all over the place, how traffic has tanked. I'm sure you've seen it from your destination clients as you've looked at their analytics, you know, inbound traffic, organic traffic, and we're seeing certainly the things that are sustaining traffic being primarily local based traffic. So as you're you know, thinking about analytics, what are some other types of things that those watching can be looking for as early signs or signals, KPIs even, to begin thinking through these various phases of recovery that we're about to go through?
It's a big question and a great question. You know, I think it's going to shift with time is the first most important thing to acknowledge. It's going, you know, again, with this idea, all marketing should be and is iterative. The KPIs are going to be different in a month than they are today, potentially. And then another month from that. And then, of course, with what they're talking about, which, you know, potential recurrences of fall and things like that, I think it's going to be very important to stay on your toes with KPI measurement, first of all. And I think, you know, for DMOs, I mean, absolutely one big thing is looking at where the traffic's coming from geographically. It's always been a metric, but a lot of that metric has been a lot more, we're looking at this geography as opposed to let's look at where people are coming from, because I think a lot of that is going to be shifting so much. So I'm not sure that I have anything novel as a KPI to offer at this moment, but I think my big takeaway right now is looking for new faces in those numbers.
Yeah,
looking for new pivot points and being creative about what it is that you're seeing. Maybe just taking less for granted and in how we measure the KPIs, being more open to looking for the secrets in the data.
The other thing I wanted to just add, which you made me think of, Matt, so we've been talking to a lot of our customers, of course. There are lots of people who are saying we're not going to measure anything right now. And I think for some that makes sense because everything has been turned upside down. And the focus on supporting local businesses in the local community means that a lot of the old metrics that you were looking at may not matter because those people may not be on your email list. They may not be coming to your website. So I think it's possible that for some of us, even at CrowdRiff, like internally, there are some things that I told my team, like our website traffic. I said, honestly, I don't really care right now. I just want to make sure our customers are happy and that we're being really useful to the community. So don't even worry about measuring it right now.
Like there's a big difference in bootstrap metrics and enterprise metrics. And right now, enterprises are bootstrapping again. Everybody's kind of having to go back to that startup mentality in a lot of different ways, which is what we're talking about today with what can we cut, what's essential. So that makes a lot of sense, just dropping it all together. It's like the KPIs never really go away. They just shift in priority, you know?
Yeah, there's some good questions. We probably won't get time to connect with all of these, but there's one that says, what former non-essential tools become now essential? And then what will become a priority during the next few months? Any come to mind, Dan?
Say that again. I just
no problem. It's the question is, what former non-essential tools became now essential, and what will become a priority during the next few months?
Yeah, I think as we evolved as an organization, years ago, social, for example, there are a lot of free tools out there that help us manage conversations or measure sentiment. And through the years, we've invested in actually enterprise tools there that have helped us as we've scaled up with more workforce, the ability to do so in one place and breaking down those silos. Now with a workforce reduction, those free tools essentially have become more essential to us to still have a pulse on what our audience is talking about, and to help us still communicate with our audience.
So let me just add real quickly. Becca's going to get the next question here. You mentioned analytics, and then Emily in the chat earlier said she took advantage of this time to actually go deeper into some training on CrowdRiff. And I thought, gosh, what a great, that's a great thing too, to realize you've already got this tool, but maybe there's some opportunity to deepen your knowledge of it to better utilize it, right? I would say the same thing goes with analytics, right? I mean, I think probably all of us have, some working knowledge, maybe, right? We can log in and we see everything and go, oh, I can click this. Oh, look, I just changed the screen. I don't know what it means, right? I mean, right, we may have some working knowledge of it, but there's lots of online resources to get certification, courses for free you can do, to brush up on some of those analytics chops, which might be more essential now moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah, Josh, I think one of your points, which I know we talked about when we were prepping for this call, is that you may have the same tool that you've had for a while, and I can say this for CrowdRiff, and if your team has changed, then maybe the way you use it has to change. And so we are definitely working with our customers to retrain people or train new people, and we have to think about, okay, this person might only have 1 hour a week now, and so what are the core things that they can do with the tool versus in the past when they might have had a full-time person who was spending hours a day. And so I think for all of us who are using tools, rethinking how you use them and using them for the most important things, and potentially doing some of that retraining, especially if you have new people using it who may not have been using it before.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good point. Maybe we have time for this one last question from our friend Ted. He asked, how are DMOs using virtual travel tech solutions to both inspire and stay top of mind? So anyone want to jump in on that?
Good question. Virtual tech solutions. I mean, I think, certainly leveraging the tools that are available. low cost. I think, there's great things through Facebook that you could do. I mean, I've been really enjoying what Puerto Rico has done, certainly, but I think Fairfax is another great example. Visit Fairfax has tons of great, they already had this, right? And so they've been able to leverage all of that pre-existing stuff to kind of serve it to their audience in new ways. And so that's been a really fantastic opportunity for them. What else are you guys seeing?
Yeah.
I do love it. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, not only is it, what technology do we use as a destination, but I think it's what is our role in that. A lot of our partners and attractions in San Francisco have created their own virtual experiences. So it's not necessarily about us through our organization creating those, but it's us curating and pushing out those that story about our partners who have those virtual experiences. But to Josh's point, there are a lot of native tools out there already on Facebook and Instagram that allow you to either go live or help promote other partner virtual experiences.
Yeah, I love it. We're running down on time, and we've still got well over 100 of you on the call. We really appreciate you tuning in. It's a great gift you give us by joining in. Hopefully this has been helpful. There's lots of questions left here. I wish we could get to them all. Feel free to reach out, connect with any of us on LinkedIn. You'll find us there. You can drop me a line personally, jcollins@streetsense.com. I'm happy to answer any questions you've got. Tune in for next week, right, Becca? Next week?
Yes.
Back?
Yeah, next week we'll have same place, same time, 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll have a great set of panelists. You can always find all of our webinars on our website, connecttravel.com/webinars. We have a lot of offerings there. We're adding more today, so just stay apprised of that and keep visiting and hanging out with us every week.
Yes, stay safe, stay healthy. Again, we're in this thing together. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see everybody next week.
See you. Thanks for hosting.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Appreciate you.
Great to have you guys on.
Thanks for having us.